What's up, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode of DIY with MI. On this episode, we're going to be checking out how to reload your own ammunition. If that sounds like something that'd be interesting to you, stay tuned because it's coming up right here on MI Sperry. Okay guys, so to get started, this is fairly simple. I'm going to go through the absolute basics of getting started. Those of you that may love and enjoy the sport of shooting pistols and shooting guns, I know that I do. You kind of run into a situation where you may get into pricey ammunition, meaning if you buy ammunition from the factory, it may be a little bit costly. Like for instance, I love shooting one of my guns that shoots the .45 Colt shell. The problem is these shells can almost be up to $1 a shell, and that is a little bit too expensive. So the best thing to do is you begin reloading. Well, some of you may ask, how do you reload and how do you do that safely and all that stuff? Well, that's what we're going to be taking a look at today on DIY with MI. We're going to be checking out what the simple equipment that you'll need. We'll also check out how to actually fully reload a shell, and we're going to be doing the .45 Colt, or long Colt some people call it, but we're going to be reloading that today. Okay, so all the link to all this stuff is going to be in the description, so that way you guys can check out the different parts and pieces. Shouldn't be too costly to start. It is going to be a couple $100 at least up front, but it's not going to be a killer. You know, you go buy one of these, I don't know if you see this is in the frame, where you buy one of these progressive presses and all that stuff, it's going to get costly quick. There's a simple, cheap way to do it. Now, before we get started, disclaimer. Reloading ammunition is dangerous, so I want you guys to always wear eye protection. I'm going to be putting gloves on here before too long once we start handling the powder and stuff. You are handling explosives, so be very, very, very careful. I cannot stress that enough. This is just going to be a quick overview video of how to do it. Please do your research. Go buy a reloading book. I've got one up here. I also have another one inside the house. Go buy a reloading book, study up, learn your gun, read all the manuals for your weapon that you're going to be reloading for, and make sure that you are not doing anything that will be too overpowered for the weapon that you're going to be using. So make sure and read everything, follow all the warnings and everything else. So now, here we go. After the disclaimer, let's get started. So the first thing you need is a reloading press of some sort. Now, like I said, these guys will run you hundreds of dollars and be basically very basic. They can run you $100. Some of them can run up to $1,500. They're expensive. So what you need to do is simply get a hold of the Lee hand press. This is actually a very simple guy. In fact, I found it at a local sports store that I have here in town. This thing, it basically opens up and closes just like this. It's a hand press. And what's great about this is that if you choose to upgrade, then you still have this cool little hand press you can reload in the field if you wanted to. Let's say you wanted to try maybe a couple different types of loads. Maybe you put in a little more powder, a little more powder, a little more powder, or something like that until you get the load that you want. You could do this very easily with your hand. So this can still be reused. You don't have to throw this away once you buy something that upgrades if you end up enjoying it. So I recommend this. It's the Lee hand press. It even has quick connects where you can put these little rings on your dies, which we'll get into here in a minute, and you can basically quick change them out. So it's very, very nice. So you'll need a press. You also need something to put the primers in, which for those of you that don't know, a primer on the end of this, that's that little dot that's in the middle, that's the primer. That's what will actually cause the shell to go off. That's what the hammer hits. So you need a priming tool. Lee makes what's called the Auto Prime tool, fairly inexpensive little tool, has this cool little caddy that holds all the primers, okay? And then all you do is basically squeeze the new primer in. So I'll show you how that works. These things, it comes built for small primers and large primers. There's primers that have a small diameter and primers that have a large diameter, and this will do both of them. It has interchangeable anvils that go in, and the instructions are easy, clear to follow. It'll tell you exactly how to do it. Now, since this is basically a universal kit, you'll also need the priming tool shell holder set. It's going to be this. What it is it's a set of shell holders, because each shell is different depending on whether you're shooting a 38, see there they are, or whether you're shooting a 38, a 9mm, a 45, 357, you know, depending on what you're shooting, and same with high-powered rifles. So this will prime up high-powered rifle shells too. So you need the right shell holders, and it comes with a little book inside that tells you what caliber as to which number of shell holder to use. So you'll need that. And then first and foremost, you also need a set of dies. These are what will size, resize, deprime, and all that stuff your shell casings, okay? Your spent shell casings that you're wanting to reload. This is the magic, is this. I highly recommend these Lee Deluxe sets because it comes with 4 dies instead of 3. It comes with the depriming resizing die, comes with the mouth flaring die and powder drop through die. It comes with the bullet seating die and the factory crimp die. If those of you use automatics, you definitely have to have, or at least in my experience, you definitely have to have that factory crimp because sometimes it'll jam up. It won't feed right if you have a semi-automatic pistol. So this is great. These are only about like 40 bucks for pretty much any caliber. So this is a great value here. And it also comes with the shell holder for that specific die. It looks like this. There's a shell holder, and that fits into any Lee press. So whether it be a big press like this or it be one of these little hand presses, that little shell holder will fit, and it comes with the die. It's fantastic. Next thing that you'll need, tool-wise, is you need a powder scale. I bought one of these little Hornady ones. Lee makes them, Lyman makes them. There's tons of these out there, but I highly recommend the electronic one. If you don't want to spend the money on the electronic one, because these can be, I don't know, 30 bucks or so, you can get a beam balance that has a beam, and you know, it's kind of like those beam balances that you used in high school to weigh stuff with. That's exactly what it looks like. It's measured in grains and all that stuff. I like the electronic ones because they're very accurate and they're very quick. You don't have to wait for it to stop balancing. So definitely get an electronic one if you can, but you don't have to. Another thing is get a cheap pair of calipers. You know, of course I say cheap, but I mean, you know, just what you can afford, but definitely get a pair of calipers, especially ones that are fairly accurate, because you need to be able to measure the size of the bullet so that way you can know how far to seat your bullet into your case. So definitely get a pair of calipers. Finally, you're going to need all the components, okay? So let's go ahead and I'll change camera angles and we'll look at the bench and I'll show you all the pieces. Okay guys, so here's all the different components. Let me move, so there's our dies, so we'll set those over to the side. There's our inserts. All right, so here's all of our different components. We've got a couple different types of bullets. I've got some regular old lead bullets, and then I've got some jacketed bullets. If you can see, they have the lead on the inside, but they got a copper jacket around them. These are a little more uniform and they run through a turret press a lot better, so that's the reason I have some of those. But these, for getting started, you can get these for dirt cheap. You can get them about 15 cents a bullet. These are just great to use for plankers if you're just wanting to shoot targets with. You need some empty brass, which I've got some here. Basically some shot brass that you're going to use, and then you need some primers, which here's our, I'm just using today, I've got some Winchester primers, but they come in a little case. They look like that. So I'm just going to use some. Now for this one, what I'm using, since mine's a 45 Colt, I got to have the large pistol primers, and see, this one's standard for Magnum pistols, which is fine. So that's what we're going to be using for the primers today. Now, how to clean the brass? Well, you can get a tumbler, a case tumbler, and things like that, but those are, you know, we're trying to do this cheap, right? We're trying to do this cheap here. So what we're going to do is, there is a very easy recipe. I usually grab a Tupperware container. So we grab a simple Tupperware container, throw the brass in there. What you're going to do is you're going to fill this with a half, or let's see, it's going to be a pint of water, okay? So I may put the text up on the screen somewhere, but you want a pint of water in here. You want a tablespoon of salt, and use sea salt. Do not use regular iodized salt, sea salt. Tablespoon of sea salt. Then you want a tablespoon of dish soap, and then you also want a half of a cup of vinegar. And mix that all up and let that sit for, I don't know, I let mine sit for like 3 hours or so, or sometimes I'll let it sit overnight just because I can. But let it sit for 3 hours or so, and every so often mix up the brass when you're doing it. Mix it up as you're doing it, okay? And what that will do is that will clean the brass. Now, this brass is not shiny. Yes, I know it's not shiny, but it has gone through that treatment. And so it, well, maybe not. I take it back. It has not gone through that treatment. But when you do, your brass will come out. It will come out tarnished, but it will be clean. It won't have any soot or powder residue or any of that muck on it. It will be clean brass. So if you're wanting to do something cheap, at least to clean it up so it doesn't have all that gunk on it, like I said, it will not polish the brass. So if the brass is tarnished, it'll stay tarnished. But anyway, you'll put that in there. You'll do that. Once you're done, you get it out of there and you're ready to reload. All right. So these are all the different components you need. And the final thing is you need a propellant. You need some powder. So what I do for the 45 long Colt, I use the Trail Boss powder. I looked it up. Again, do your research, get a book, look it up in a book, make sure you have the right load information and things like that. I can't stress that enough because this is dangerous. If you overload something, or you can blow it up. If you underload something, you can get a bullet stuck in your barrel, and then if you don't know it, you put another bullet down it, you're gonna have a bad day, right? So, okay, so hazards, okay, hazards. You gotta read up on this stuff, okay? Don't just take this video as this is exactly how you do it, okay? I've done my research, so do your research, read up on it. But here's the Trail Boss powder. This powder is a great powder for beginners. It's a very light load. You basically cannot overpower a shell using this. Now, again, I'm using this only, and I have only used this for the 45 long Colt. I've not used it for any other shell. So I can only speak to the 45 Colt, okay, using this. But anyway, this is what I'm going to be using. I use about 5.5 grains, and that's just a nice, good, light load. Great for plinking, shooting targets with. Not for, you know, taking down deer or something with, no way. But just for busting paper, works great. All right, so let's go ahead and see the process. Okay, guys, so first things first, I have put my scale together and zeroed it. So we got that. So next, I'm going to take and put my primers in. Now, how this works is you pop this open, and notice that it's actually square. Well, it fits your primers perfectly. So what I usually do is take and slide this container out like so, place this on top of it, and then I'll just invert it. I'll just flip it over because you want the primers to be in there upside down. Now, I've already gone and done one. I have multiple ones of these because I use small and large pistol primers, but just to give you an idea what it looks like. Okay, see, there's the primers. Okay, so they're all upside down because that's the way they need to be so they can be pressed into the case. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in my little priming tool. I've got the correct number 11 shell holder in there. So the first thing I need to do is I need to take my brass, okay, and I need to deprime it because I can't get a new primer until I put it in. So as per the instructions with the die, I have set the die up and the depth of it. This is the decapping die. If you notice, there's a little pin that will push the primer out. Now, sometimes this is kind of tough to get this to slide up in there. So what I do, very simply, chapstick. You can buy some very expensive case lube if you want to, but I've found that if you just take a little chapstick and put a little chapstick on the casing, now you don't have to do this for every case you run through. You just do it, oh, I don't know, every once in a while to keep the die lubed up in here. But anyway, you slide the casing in, make sure it goes up in there properly, and then you press. There we go. You press it, pull it back out, and now it has been decapped. Takes the cap out, and then you can see that it knocks it out. There's the old primer that's been spent. So we do that. We have now decapped it. Now we have to reprime it. So what we do is we take our little priming tool here, and it has a primer in there ready. We're going to slide this in place, and then we're going to press it in. All right, there we are. So there's a brand new primer, all in there, nice and neat. Now, the next piece that we need to do is we're going to need to be able to put the powder in. So I've gone ahead and changed out the die to the powder through die. What this will also do is it will expand the mouth of the brass so it'll accept a bullet. So we slide this in and we press that in. Okay, so now that has expanded it, and this reason it's called a powder through, you can pour the powder directly in there and it goes into the case. Now, what I need to do is I need to measure my powder. So the die set comes with this cool little powder scoop, which is fantastic. So I want 5.5 grains. So I'm going to dump, and not quite. Oh, this is on grams. I got to get the right units. Let's get it back to grains. So that's 2.5 grains. 5.4. That's right. Yeah, that's close enough. I could go and try to split hairs and get the exact 5.5, but that's close enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off of here, and I'm just going to pour our powder right down through and into it. There we go. So now our powder's in. Be very careful taking it back out so you don't throw powder everywhere. Now, I don't know if you can see that. See the powder down in there? Anyway, so now our case is charged. So now we need to set a bullet in it. Okay, now that we're ready, I have changed out the dies to the bullet seating die. Now I've taken the setting, this screw thing at the top is what seats, it shows, it basically is the plunger of where it shoves, how far it shoves the bullet down in. Gosh, I can't talk. So I pulled it up to where you can just barely see threads. Now obviously once you set all these dies up, you won't have to do it again, especially if you use the quick change guys, then you won't have to set all this up. Once you get it set, you're good. So anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my casing in, okay? Grab me a bullet. We'll go with, well, let's go with the jacketed one. They look prettier. So jacketed bullet, it sets right in the casing. And don't worry if it's crooked, it'll straighten out. And then whoops, if I can get it to set in there. There we go. And then we're going to push it on up in there. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to twist this till we feel resistance. Okay, then we're going to pull this back down and we're going to turn it 1/2 turn to a full turn, 1/2 turn to a full turn, 1/2 turn to a full turn. So 3 whole turns, and then we're going to give it, we're going to push it down in there. Okay. So there we go. I've already clamped it. Now, this is where these come in handy. Now, normal shells of this kind are 1.6 inches long. So this is about 1.68. So we're a little bit too much. So what we're going to, or not enough. So what we need to do is we need to crimp this down. Now, if I remember right, I think it's 1 whole turn is 55 thousandths, but I can't remember. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with a 1/2 turn. So a 1/2 turn in, we're going to re-crimp it, or reseat it, excuse me, and then we're going to check it again. So we went down about 10 thousandths, or 165. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a full turn. So I've got a 1/2 turn and a full turn. So let's put her back in, seat it some more. Okay, we'll check it now. 1.6 right on the money. So that's perfect. So that's perfectly seated. So now we'll go ahead and we'll factory crimp it just because we can. Now this is going to be shot out of a revolver, so I can shoot it just like this perfectly fine, but I'm going to go ahead and factory crimp it so you can see it. Okay, now that I've got that in there, I've backed, basically again, same deal. This is the factory crimping one, but I've backed it all the way out so that way I can set it. So now what we do is we put the round back in it, close it, and then we turn this till we start to feel resistance. You can feel it hit the mouth of the case. And there it is. It gets hard to turn. So there we go. So that's it. So then we back it out. Now, you have 2 options. You can have a full crimp or a light crimp. Now, if you want a light crimp, you turn it 1/2 turn on in. If you want the full crimp, then you turn it a full turn. So we go another 1/2. Okay, I'm going to do the full crimp. Let's push it in, crimp it down. And there is our finished shell with a factory crimp on the side of it. We'll see. And there you are. That is a perfect shell for the long Colt. Okay guys, well that's how you reload a .45 Colt bullet. So guys, I hope that you like this series. If you like this, definitely give it a thumbs up. Definitely let me know down in the comments, what would you like to see of? I was thinking we'll maybe do some stuff with cars, some simple car repair stuff that works on every car, not really model specific. I thought about, I don't know, just some stuff around the house. Like I had a heating element go out in my stove, and so I replaced that, or at least had to troubleshoot it, figure out that it was the element, and figure out what to do. If you guys want to see videos like that, let me know down in the comments. In fact, let me know what kind of DIY project. Let me know, hey, I've always wanted to know how to do this or that. If it's something I know, I'll share it. If not, I might just actually check into it and see how to do it. And once I know, you'll know. So guys, let me know down in the comments, please. That I read those all the time. It gives me great ideas for the channels. Hit the thumbs up if you like this series, and we'll continue it. Thanks guys, take care, and we'll see you next time.